Is it Zoom? Is it Teams? Where are my human beings? And that is the subject of today's podcast. And of course, on a day when there is the expectancy of a tremendous hurricane, category 3, 4, or 5, about to make landfall any hour now, why not talk about the humanity of things when it comes to practicing law, and specifically family law, because that is really what I do personally. Welcome again to the Best Florida Family Law Podcast. My name is Attorney Jonathan Jacobs of the Jacobs Law Firm. And today's episode is about what happened to the good old days. What happened to the times when we used to actually interact face to face? Here's my handshake. Here you go. So glad to meet you. Nice to see you here at the courthouse. Nice to meet you here at my offices, whichever one. Nice to be with you. Nice to meet your significant other or boyfriend, girlfriend, family member, mom, dad, best friend for support. So glad to be with you. That sort of human element does not really exist to quite the same extent today. And why doesn't it really exist to the same extent today? Is because of Zoom and Teams and Cisco WebEx, whatever platform your local court is using, more often than not. Teams for Polk, Teams sometimes for Seminole, Zoom for Orange County, Zoom for Lake County, and so on and so forth. Before COVID hit, it used to be that almost every hearing and every mediation was in person. In fact, as an opposing counsel and a really smart lawyer, who I will not name just for whatever reason, a really smart lawyer in Orlando reminded me in one of our cases as opposing counsels. Great lawyer, fantastic. If she listens, hopefully she remembers. Her knowledge of the rule is that mediations are still supposed to happen in person. Unless, of course, there's domestic violence issue, in which case, maybe rather than happening in person, what the parties are better off doing is having separate sides of the courthouse, maybe, or at least arriving at different times. But nonetheless, 99% of my mediations that I'm a counselor on board for the petitioner or respondent, 99% are done by Zoom. And I think that is the best way, and with good reason. And frankly, for something like an uncontested divorce, why would you want two people to travel 30, 40, 50 minutes, perhaps even longer, and appear at the courthouse, wait an hour or two for a 3-minute final hearing? What sense does that make? Why can't that be done virtually in 5 minutes? Why can't those parties, husband and wife or whomever, why can't they go to work? Why can't they spend that time doing something productive? Why can't they do it from the comfort, safety, protection of their own home, where they feel as though they're isolated enough to feel comfortable with the situation? Why make them confront each other one additional time? Because in an uncontested divorce, that doesn't really make sense. For a motion to compel hearing, which is what we call a non-evidentiary hearing, it's a procedural motion. In other words, we're going through the process of following the rules. It's not really about husband or wife taking the testimony of husband or wife against each other for an outcome. This is just, did they provide the documents? Yes, no, how many of them? Should they have provided all of the documents? Those sorts of hearings are best done by Zoom as well. I understand that most evidentiary hearings, weather dependent, especially like right now, although the courthouses are closed in Central Florida for a couple of days at a minimum, most evidentiary hearings nowadays are done in person still, which is, I think, fantastic, because an outcome will happen and the parties sort of get a feeling for where they are personally, where they are professionally, where they are legally, and the judge can interact with and see the veracity of these people and witness, no pun intended, what's happening inside of the courtroom. But again, that aspect of the humanity of family law, have we surrendered the humanity? Because now Zoom and Teams, it's like we're ChatGPT or some sort of an AI component involved here. Maybe. I would like to think that it's more for convenience, and that when it is really necessary and really appropriate for a trial, for an evidentiary hearing, for something of great importance to a case, I would like to think that that is when those in-person hearings are still needed and when those in-person hearings are still appropriate. Sorry, my computer monitor just went off. Um, I would like to think that that is when these things are still necessary or still a good thing. But ultimately, I do miss the days when I would meet all of my clients. Some of my clients I only meet on Zoom or by telephone now. Whereas go back 4 or 5 years, there's not a single instance in which I didn't meet my client. In almost every instance, I would meet them. The old handshake, look each other in the eyes, make sure that we have a good, solid mutual understanding of what the case is about and what our perspectives are, and that my legal advice is being properly understood. But we live in a technological society. Times are advancing, things are advancing, and we move at lightning speed. And people really want to make sure that they are taken care of right away. They do not want to travel 45 minutes, take off 3 hours from work to come meet me for 30 minutes and notarize a document, for example. They do not want to come and meet me and take 2, 3, 4 hours out of their day when that might mean a loss of earnings. I mean, Zoom is just so convenient. These technologies are so important to our daily lives and increasingly and ever increasingly so. Do I miss people and do I miss those interactions? Yes. I got into the business because I enjoy interacting with people, learning about people, knowing their stories. But that can still be done in a different way. It just is different. And the younger generations might never recognize that. Those of us who are Gen Xers and the older generations, I guess boomers, although that name just, even though it's baby boomers, it's used in a derogatory fashion sometimes, and that really bothers me. We should have a healthy respect for each generation and each person that we interact with. But whatever, that's a different day, different topic. I still do miss the old days, but I understand why we have the new ones. This has been another episode of the Best Florida Family Law Podcast. None of this is legal advice. This is just simply for your education, for information and referential purposes. And I hope that on a day when you might be listening to some talk radio, some talk podcasts, I hope this has been a good companion and a little bit thought-provoking for you. Thank you.